We're back, everyone, with more Naruto.
Okay, so I'm really excited because now, officially, you guys have all met the Rookie 9, the Konoha 12, and the Sand siblings. Which is awesome because those are pretty much the main characters going forward, them and their teachers, with the exception of some villains. But you've also met Orochimaru, and you've met Kabuto, and you've met Anko.
Yeah.
What a weird spot to introduce the series villain.
I really don't think it's that odd.
I found it it would have been one thing if it was towards the end of the Forest of Death, but to introduce him so early on and make him the first half of the Forest of Death, that was kind of weird to me.
Look, your perspective's weird because I haven't actually finished the arc we're in.
Maybe. But...
Like, we're mid-arc, and Orochimaru is the main villain for the arc, and we're not even close to, done. In terms of, finishing this arc out. So you're kind of left at a weird place for Orochimaru to be, because he showed up, he did his thing, and then he left.
Maybe.
For you.
Even still, just, every last, I feel like that was a very big moment for the series, and it was their very first encounter in the second exam, the very first fight of the season.
I don't know, Harrison, do you... I don't know, Realm, do you agree with me that, we did leave it in, a weird place at episode 45 with Orochimaru, but, his appearance isn't that weird here.
His appearance isn't all that weird, in my opinion. But I definitely think that, just in general, where we did end up leaving off was a little weird, because we basically just see Naruto win his fight. We don't get much else context afterwards. That's the only thing I would really say. I didn't mind it personally.
Because you know what happens. Kind of.
Kind of. It's been a while.
Yeah, but, so, unfortunately, because of my episode constraints, we did miss out on the final two fights in this arc, so we didn't actually get to see Hinata's fight or Lee's fight, which are arguably the only two valid fights in this entire arc.
I don't know, according to my brother who watched Naruto beginning to end, they're the only two valid fights in this entire series.
That's fair, your brother is right. But, so
good to know. We're setting the bar high early, and it only gets worse from here on out.
We peak. We're gonna peak in the next 5 episodes you see in my next submission, and then it's just all gonna be downhill from there.
Wonderful.
We're peaking early, and it's all downhill from here.
Yeah. So we started with the end of the Zabuza arc, and I know that last time I kind of left us off in a bad place, but that's because when I was looking at the episode breakdown, the Zabuza arc does technically go through episode 18. So I couldn't, 18 or 19, so I couldn't actually include all of it in our first submission because we're limited to 17 max on normal length submissions, and I didn't want to cut it off right at the climax and leave you, with literally just, the final blow of the fight. So I did cut it in a weird place, which meant that we got to watch the entire final fight with Zabuza and Haku, and I will say, watching this back with NikNak, binging this with NikNak was actually painful. This chunk. For some reason, in my head, obviously, I have seen Naruto dozens of times. And in my head, it's much more streamlined. My memories of this section of episodes, 12 through 20, was I don't know, my brain cut out all of the recaps and fillers and, the fact that we got the same recap from Haku every other episode for 9 episodes.
Here's the thing. I know there's a good series in here with a lot of this pacing because, when I sped up the series towards the end for the fight scenes in particular, I could feel that these fight scenes were not supposed to feel as long as they were. They felt more well-paced when you didn't have the slowdown of Naruto takes a hit. Oh my god, he's doing this. Naruto! Oh, I can do this! And then does it. It's really, really weird how they go about it. This is also something I noticed a lot early shonen in their anime adaptations. It doesn't necessarily work if it's directly adapted from the manga. But the manga, I could see how that would work because it doesn't interrupt the flow of the panels.
Yeah, honestly, I felt kind of bad after watching this 8 episodes finishing up Haku and Zabuza's story because it was painful for me to watch it. There were so many more flashbacks than I thought was possible in that many episodes.
Oh god, the most egregious one is that one villain. There's a fight between this one guy and the bug guy.
Okay, I'm not even on that part yet, my dude. I'm talking about Zabuza and Haku. Still.
No one cares about Zabuza.
Yes, but I'm going section by section. I'm trying to get your opinions on the final of Zabuza and Haku.
Shit.
Okay, Zabuza and Haku is actually one of the best arcs in the show, so...
It felt like a filler anime movie.
That sucks for you, because it doesn't get much better.
Sucks for me.
Yeah, sucks
really
for you.
Really does suck for you, honestly.
I mean, did you have any opinions about...
I mean, since I mostly podcasted this, I kind of naturally got to skip a little bit of the filler, as it were, because I didn't have to worry about skipping it as much, so when something new just came on, I actually tuned in and started listening, basically. So it was as if the filler didn't really exist, so when it was actually not just fillering out its plotline, it was actually pretty good, I think.
Plus, I thought you would have been excited to talk about Pakun.
Who?
Pug!
Pug-kun.
It's
a
Rocco.
pug.
It's literally Rocco.
But we're reviewing the Naruto series, not the Pakun series, so...
It's more the Pakun series than you'd think when Kakashi's involved. Anyways, okay, so now Chuunin exams, right? So I kind of when I broke these episodes up for you guys, and I sent you the things, right? I broke it up into the first exam, the Forest of Death, and the fights at the end. So let's talk about the first exam. And I really loved the first exam the first time I watched it, because these are ninjas, right? Like, they are weapons of this village. And they are taking this, like, test that's supposed to show off the power of their various villages and how strong their next generation is going to be, and promote them to, like, a higher level of mastery, right? And they're ninja! And they go into a classroom and they sit down with paper tests. And, like, the questions are about, like, the trajectory of a kunai factoring in wind if flung at, like, this speed at this height. And I'm just like, what the fuck for a second? Like, hot minute, I was watching this, I was like... This is like fucking SATs? Like, what? Why are these ninjas taking a paper test? Like, what the fuck? But then you realize the secret behind the test is it's not that you're supposed to know the answers, right? It's good if you do. If you do, what you're a great book ninja. But the point of the test is spying. It's like the actual act of espionage, like this more sneaky kind of ninja thing where the point is to cheat and not get caught.
See, I actually really like this arc because it felt the most well-paced out of any arc we've seen with Naruto so far. Because, and I think this has a lot to do with the fact that the characters actively couldn't talk much.
Yeah.
So you don't have, like, when you see someone using their ability...
They're not saying anything, they're just doing it.
It's not like you get commentary from Naruto, Sakura, and Hinata and Sasuke about what's going on. No, you get just them doing it.
And of course we meet some of my ongoing favorite characters in the series, like Ibiki Morino, the test proctor, the head of torture and interrogation.
I just passed a kid who didn't even answer a single question.
Yeah, my dude Ibiki, I am so sorry for you going forward in this series because you have to deal with these little shits for the rest of your career. Anyways, but Ibiki, Izumo, Kotetsu, Gekko Hayate, Genma, and Raido. None of which you probably recognize other than Izumo and Kotetsu, who were the two guys that were disguised trying to trick them on floor 2, saying that it was floor 3 when they went to go to the exam. They were the two guys that were disguised to be younger, trying to trick the group. So that was Izumo and Kotetsu. And they do actually have a lot of input going forward. Then Ibiki has like an arc dedicated to him later as well. But the test itself, right? We actually get to see the Rookie 9, right? And Kabuto and the Sand 3, and then the older team, Neji, Tenten, and Lee. And we kind of get to take a look at a little bit of their own abilities, like specifically their more spy-like abilities or their brains, right? And honestly, some of the things were really cool, like Kabuto's puppet. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, Gaara's like sand eye.
Yeah.
And then you had like Tenten manipulating mirrors with like Lee working together. And then, of course, you had people like Hinata and Sakura who could figure out the answers.
Right.
But then you have Sasuke who's like Sharingan, instead of copying a jutsu, he's copying the arm movements of a person who knows the answers to make the exact movements on his paper. You know? Or the bugs.
Yeah.
From Bug Guy.
From Bugman.
Yeah, like, it was pretty cool. I think the only team we didn't really see anything out of, right, was Shikamaru's team, and that's because Shikamaru was smart enough to figure out the answers. We didn't see if Choji was doing any cheating, and Ino does her mind trick thing. She did it with Sakura.
Yeah, I did
For
see
the
that.
first time, we see her doing her mind projection with Sakura.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I actually really liked this because it's the first time that Naruto's like taken a break from big flashy fights and done something that actually feels ninja-ish.
And of course, Naruto has no idea what the fuck to do, so he just rots inside, basically.
He is Konoha's number one knuckleheaded ninja.
Yeah.
Like, he's an idiot. Even Lee knew what to do better than Naruto did.
Yeah.
And part of that is just that they were underprepared for the test. I mean, Kakashi told them literally like 2 days before.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone else knew like way far in advance, and they could have like looked up records of previous tests and like made plans and shit, and they just didn't have time to do that, which is entirely Kakashi's fault. But also, we know the three of them; they would never have gotten together to make plans for that kind of shit.
Absolutely not.
Yes.
That just wouldn't have happened.
Absolutely not.
But yeah, I really liked this exam because it was, I mean, the Chuunin exams overall, one of the things that's talked about several times by the Hokage and their teachers is that these are child weapons, right? Like, they are being trained as child soldiers in the act of, like, murder, espionage, and fighting. And this is the first time we see, like, an actual espionage sort of thing going on, and rather than just, I have big lightning fists to punch through your fucking abdomen.
Yeah.
How old are they again?
They are 12.
That explains a couple things.
They're
I
12.
thought.
Yeah, they're 12. That's the official age of graduation at the academy is 12. So, I mean, these are children.
Yeah.
I mean, even Neji and Neji's team is only a year older. And the Sand siblings, I think Kankuro and Tamari are a little bit older. They're like 13 and 14.
Mm-hmm.
But Gaara's 12.
Yeah.
And some of the test takers, like Kabuto's way older than 12. He's taken the test 7 times. It happens twice a year. So he's taken it 4 years in a row, which means he's at least 16.
Yeah.
The problem with that, I noticed something. It's like they said 7 at the start, and then like toward the end, where like they were doing the review, they said 6.
Oh,
Like,
did
what-
they do
yeah.
that with him? Maybe this was his 7th time. I think they said he was taking this was his 7th time taking it, which means he's taken it 6 times before.
Yeah.
But it does happen twice a year, and the location changes every year, and each village changes the way they run the test depending on who's running it. So it's not as if you can really be prepared for what's going to happen. It's not always the same. I know from lore outside of the series that you wouldn't learn unless you were reading like character books and something. But I guess one of Kakashi's Chuunin exams took place in the Sand Village, and it was a survival mission in the desert rather than
Rather than the Forest of Death.
Yeah. Well, you don't even have to have a survival mission part of it. There's no like. There's
not a concrete like structure,
Yeah.
and that kind of makes sense. Like if you think about like the in lore, because all ninja missions are different in their own way, so it makes sense that they wouldn't all be the same.
Yeah, so we get introduced to the other hidden villages, and each one has like some sort of like special abilities or gimmicks or things that are unique to them. Like the Sound Village, working with like sound and wind and that kind of thing.
Okay,
So Forest of Death, we'll move on so you can complain about the Forest of Death.
I mean, it starts really good, and then I just think the second half peters off into a bit more of a, I don't want to say lighthearted tone, because it wasn't quite lighthearted, but it was definitely not...
Would you say lackadaisical is a good way of
It
describing
wasn't a good follow-up to the Orochimaru fight. The second half of the Forest of Death was definitely more... I don't want to say filler, because it wasn't filler. But it felt kind of tacked on to me.
Yeah, because they didn't get through the forest before they ran into Orochimaru, but they couldn't, obviously Kishimoto couldn't have them fail the exam at that point, so they had to keep going. So you get, like, the beginning of the Forest of Death, which is pretty fucking good. You get the fight with Orochimaru, and then they still have to finish the exam, even though the fights happened kind of in the middle. I think that's one of the things that benefited the manga, is because in the manga they intersperse Orochimaru's fight with like the visuals of the other teams doing their thing, and then they get to the tower, and it's
Instead of having the fight all taking like one log segment or something like that.
yeah, it kind of in the manga panels it shows how they're running kind of concurrently, rather than 1 story, 2 story, 3 story, 4 story, like sequentially.
That's kind of honestly how I envisioned this going, despite it not being like all shown like that. Like things are happening concurrently. It's just that maybe the manga, or not manga, but the anime doesn't do that as much as the manga.
See, but it wasn't the other teams that felt so egregious to me. For me, the egregious part was immediately following the Orochimaru part, where Sasuke and Naruto were just kind of lying knocked out with Sakura and eventually other teams protecting them. That felt so... Like, I get there's a point in the story, but it felt kind of stretched out.
I mean, they're fucked up after that fight.
Yeah, but...
Like, fucked up.
I don't know. Like, I felt like that didn't quite need to be a full extra fight scene there. I don't know.
I don't know. I actually kind of like the part where Sakura is guarding them, mostly because, like, Sasuke and Naruto are out for the fucking count. Like, they are in trouble. They are not just knocked out. Like, they are suffering. And Sakura is the only one left, and she's like, all she knows how to do is, like, set rudimentary traps and hope to God that no other team tries to fight her. Because she's useless.
But it was like, even with the Zabuza arc tacked on to what we watched, this to me was my least favorite stretch of Naruto right here so far, from what we did watch this submission.
I definitely don't agree. I do actually really like Sakura guarding them and dealing with, like, shit on her own without them around.
Yeah. I actually did like this part as well myself. Like, maybe not as much as, like, say, the Orochimaru fight myself. Like, I actually liked the Orochimaru fight, what happened, and, like, what transpires because of it.
It's a fun fight.
It's an actually fun fight. I actually enjoyed it myself. And actually seeing at least a tiny amount of character development out of Sakura, even though this is, like, the majority that she gets at all.
Sakura gets, like, 3 moments of character development. 1 is in this arc. 1 doesn't happen till Shippuden.
And then no more.
No more.
And no more.
Look, I am not a Sakura hater. I actually really like Sakura. I just feel so bad for her character. Because, like, she could be such a good character, and she's just not. Like, the potential is there. You can see it.
It's just wasted, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's the case of a lot of the female characters. Like, the potential is there. So I was watching a review of this section of Naruto, and somebody in the comment, and the guy reviewing it was like, "Oh, I'm so excited to see where they go with Anko's storyline." And I was just like, sucks to suck, fuck nugget. You're not going to see anything on that front.
I think my biggest problem, though, is just the sheer amount of characters that start having importance at that part, which, I don't know, I feel like there's too many characters that we know very, very little about at this point.
That's not a problem for me, really, because it's just setting the wheel in motion so that way we know, hey, this character exists and they're doing something, but we don't know what their intentions are.
Well, because moving forward, they're not always in a team of Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura. Like, post-Chuunin exams, like, we actually get a lot of involvement from the members of the other teams in missions, especially in Naruto, more so than in Shippuden in a lot of cases. In Shippuden, they stick closer to their assigned teams than they do post-Chuunin exams in Naruto. So, I mean, we're getting introduced to the Konoha 12 and the Sand Trio, and they are all, you know, important characters going forward after the end of this arc. Like, we get a lot more on them post this arc, which means that this is their introduction to the series. And it wouldn't necessarily make sense to introduce them one by one when, in a situation like a test like this, you have all of them so you can say, here's the spread of characters that we're going to be getting involved with. You know? Like, you saw them briefly back in episode 1 or 2, and then we followed the main trio for a while. But now they're back, and look at, like, how they've changed or improved, and we're going to be including them in a larger role going forward.
But for me, it's kind of like DC's Suicide Squad. You're getting all these characters at this part that's supposed to be fairly important to the plot, given we just had the BBEG of the series appear. And a lot of the rest of this arc is still motivated by him. So when they're all getting involved, and a lot of them have no connection to what just happened outside of the fact that they are from that class, it pulls me out of it. That's the best I can say. And it doesn't feel like the flashbacks feel kind of tacked in there because they need to be in it. just destroys the pacing of the arc.
But at the same rate, I don't think this arc would be as good if you didn't have a bunch of other characters. Like, this arc would not be nearly as interesting if you only were given Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and then just a bunch of random background characters we don't know.
It would just be the same melancholy fucking bullshit that it's been up to this point, and I would absolutely fucking hate it. It's just so boring if you remove any of these if you take out any of these extra characters, because you're not given anything to think about.
And they've always been there. The only reason you didn't see them in the Zabuza arc is because they kind of tricked their way into getting an out-of-village mission. Like, when they're working around the village, they do see the other teams.
Yeah, there's a perfectly good in-universe reason for it, but just as far as the storytelling goes, I don't care about any of these characters, and they're in this important arc.
And that's fine. You don't have to care about them now. This is setting...
I do if I want to enjoy the story.
You but you don't have to care about them now, is what I'm saying.
But
you can care about them when there's actual stakes at play.
There were stakes, though.
There were stakes, but they're not good stakes.
I'm supposed to care about them at this point. That's the thing, is there's a lot... Like, at a certain point, even Sakura is out of the fight for a bit, so you have these characters that you've had no time with in this fight that's being built up as important, and I'm just like, who are you again? I don't even know your names.
Okay, well that's partially a you problem, because you can't even remember some of the people when I describe them to you. I mean, like, we get their names like 10 times each per fight. You know?
Well, that's normally not a problem if it's a smaller cast in one spot, but
I missed the part where that's my problem moment.
Well, I think this is my criticism of the series. I'm not saying you guys have to agree with me here.
I'm sorry, I was making a joke right there.
But when I'm watching the series as someone who's never watched Naruto, has no connection to it in my childhood or in any of my past, this is the stuff I'm noticing here.
I do have to slightly agree with NikNak. Some of the characters in there are just plain boring, and I really couldn't remember their names.
Some of them aren't important going forward, but the problem is, right? So let's do it this way, right? Going forward, right? Kabuto and his team doesn't matter. Kabuto matters, but his team doesn't matter. Zaku, the Sound Ninja team, they don't fucking matter going forward. But the problem is, if you populate the entire exam with, like, those grass ninja and the sound shinobi and stuff like that, if you populate them with just characters who don't fucking matter, then you end up following 3 characters only through this entire exam, and there's no actual competition. See, I think the reason why I like having the Konoha 12, right, and the Sand siblings, is because they're main characters, so our main characters can lose to them. Because they're all main characters, they don't, like...
They all play off each other in their own way.
Yeah, like
they're meant to be rivals, honestly, in their own way, because that's kind of how the kind of tone I get from them being built up, is they're rivals to our main gang with Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura.
And especially in the fights that we get into at the end after the Forest of Death, right? Especially in the fights. See, the thing is, right, the Sound Trio can't beat any of the main cast. The Kabuto's team can't beat any of the main cast, because they're not characters that we should care about going forward. But the main 12, they can beat one another. They can punch the shit out of one another, because they're all of kind of equal strength and importance in the plot moving forward. And so you can actually see, like, the characters that you like losing or getting the shit beaten out of them because they're stupid, where areas like, for example, like, Zaku could not beat Naruto. That, like, you just couldn't have it. But they're feasibly, Kiba could have beaten Naruto.
I have 0 issues with one-off villains. There's, like, one area where I'll complain about how they handled it. But for the most part, the one-off villains, I could tell were one-off villains, or villains that are minor to this arc and may appear again later. That's fine. It's the 12 that I have a problem with. It's because we've got no exposure to them, or very minimal exposure to them prior to this arc. It feels like this arc should have been preceded by smaller arcs that introduced them more as time went along.
I will say that could have helped the pacing at least a little bit, like maybe instead of seeing like some of these unnecessary scenes with like Naruto and his gang fucking around, we could have gotten a little bit of time with him instead.
Yeah, those 2 episodes where they're doing a bunch of missions, we could have talked to some of the other
we could have at
teams.
least gotten like a little bit of exposure, so that way we have something going into this instead of nothing. I think that could have helped at least a little bit. But for me, overall, it doesn't kill it for me. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, okay, but then again, to be fair, we are coming from the perspective where we do know some of these characters moving forward. Like, I know Shino. I love Shino. You don't love Shino, but I love Shino.
Who's Shino again?
Bug guy.
Okay.
I don't remember his character.
Okay,
I don't remember his character very much, but I really like Gara.
Quick rundown, right? Gara, murderous sand dude. Tamari, big fan, sand woman.
Okay.
Kankuro,
Gara.
Shut up. Kankuro, puppet
I was
boy.
going to say something nice about the series.
Sorry.
I love the execution Gar does in the middle of the Forest of Death. I saw it, I'm like, oh, hell yeah.
So in the dude, that scene in the manga is so fucked up. Because in the manga, like, that's happening, and Ino's team is, like, watching from the sidelines, and so Shikamaru's a genius, right? But Shikamaru's also super fucking... all the Konoha ninjas are super fucking protected, right? By the way, Shikamaru is Shadow Guy, Ino has the mind, and Choji's the fat guy who rolls around as a ball.
He can't stop himself from eating potato chips.
Yeah, that one. But so like Shikamaru's watching it, and he is so convinced in the manga. Like we're watching Gaara's execution from Shikamaru's point of view. He is convinced that Gaara won't kill him because he doesn't think anyone would do that, because this is an exam, not a life or death situation. And then Gaara murders that person in front of him. And he just fucking goes into shock in the manga. And he has this, like, he's super smart. Shikamaru is the smartest character, pretty much, in the series. That's his thing. He is incredibly intelligent. And he literally goes into shock where he just cannot comprehend. And he's so scared he doesn't know how to get away as fast as he possibly can. He's just like, oh my fucking god, we're gonna die here.
Wait, so he's dead?
No, he's not dead.
No, he got away.
He just witnesses someone else get murked by
Yeah.
Gaara and is scared out of his fucking
That dude
mind.
in the forest, though, he's fucking dead. The one who Gaara sand coffined.
Okay.
I love, like, just badass executions. There's a reason Accelerator's my favorite Index character.
Yeah, okay.
So seeing Gaara do that was just like, oh, that was fucking awesome.
Okay, so then there's Kiba's team, which is Wolf Boy, Kiba, Hinata, Byakugan, and Shino, Bug Boy. And Rock Lee's team, Rock Lee, green jumpsuit, 1010, weapons mistress, buns in her hair, and Neji, Byakugan, stuck up. Like, stick shoved so far up his ass.
Mm-hmm.
That
Konoha
was
12.
a lot of names.
Well, yeah, you're not going to remember all the names, but those are the Konoha 12 and then the Sand Trio.
Also, I mean, there are some diamonds in the rough amongst, like, the main village cast. Like, I do enjoy some of them just had memorable powers, and some of them did have...
Such as...
Bug Guy was interesting.
I love Bug Guy.
I don't remember his name, but he was interesting.
Shino.
Dog Guy was interesting.
Akamaru.
And,
Or
Rock-
Kiba. Kiba and Akamaru.
Kiba and Akamaru.
And I like Rock Lee for just being... I'm just gonna punch it.
Like, everyone has to know Rock Lee, because
Rock Lee-
I will not shut up about Rock Lee.
Rock Lee is literally just...
God.
No, he's just Bruce Lee in Naruto.
Yeah, so the thing
annoying.
is, right, the whole point of this series is that there's supposed to be a point being made about Naruto and Sasuke, and how Sasuke is like a natural burn genius and Naruto's a hard work genius. But the problem is, Naruto has the QB inside of him and like a lot of chakra and actually like a lot of hidden talent. So he's not really a hard work genius so much as he's just also a natural genius. Rock Lee is the hard work genius in Naruto.
I will agree with Warner. I did hear him drop a comment that he's annoying. I'm like, in the fight scenes, I like Rock Lee, and when it's Rock Lee-centric, I like Rock Lee. But whenever Rock Lee is on the sidelines, I think he's one of the worst about the, oh no, look what they're doing.
Because his reactions are just so over the top.
I literally cannot wait for after the next submission I can put in Rock Lee, Seishun, No Full Power. Just the chibi Rock Lee series. I cannot wait. Okay, so...
I will at least agree. Most of the freaking characters that we saw seems like goddamn side characters. For now. For now.
Yeah, I mean, they are for now. Like I said, I mean, obviously, I did kind of cut us off in, like, the middle of an arc because I had to. There's no way we could do the Chuunin exams in one arc. It's too big.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't even get to the third exam.
No.
We're, like, the fights that we've gotten to are the preliminaries for the third exam. And we didn't finish the preliminaries. We still have the Hinata versus Neji and Rock Lee and Gaara. And, I mean, arguably, Rock Lee and Gaara is the peak of Naruto. Like, everyone will agree. Naruto peaks at Rock Lee's fight with Gaara.
We're peaking early, and it's only downhill from here.
Mm-hmm.
I will say on the topic of the preliminaries, some of the fights were interesting, but I think the only two that I would qualify as good were Sasuke's fight was just there. Sakura Ino up till towards the ending was a really good fight.
Where they punched each other out.
I didn't mind that they punched each other out. It's just like the Deus Ex Machina of Inner Sakura was a gag character all the way up till this point, suddenly being the reason Sakura gets out, and the double knockout was some of the largest bullshit I've seen in anime recently.
I really liked Sakura's fight with Ino because I love Inner as a character. I think Inner is absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also the last time that Inner like ever gets utilized properly.
Yeah.
And but otherwise, like outside of the bullshit ending, I thought that fight scene was really clever. It was a clever use of their abilities. You can see them thinking through the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, no, for me that was probably the best fight scene in the series thus far. Followed closely, in my opinion, by Naruto and Akamaru. Is that
Kiba, sorry.
Kiba. Akamaru's the dog,
Yeah,
isn't it?
Akamaru's the
I only know
dog.
from the title. Their fight I thought was really good until the fart joke.
God, the fucking
That was so
Look,
stupid.
look! You were watching these episodes, and I knew where you were going with them. Like I knew what schedule you were on because I could hear you were texting me to comment, and I was like, I cannot wait till he finishes the fight with Akamaru because that is the most shonen bullshit that has ever bullshitted.
I couldn't when the fucking fart joke happened. I'm like, oh my.
But like also at the same time, that is kind of the danger of having a really enhanced sense of smell.
I know, but
I
why? But
It's
why?
Could you have aimed for any amount of lower brow humor than that?
It was just so
I
out.
fucking loved it.
It was just so out of left field. I didn't like it at all.
Up until that point, it was an amazing fight scene, like where Naruto's using his shadow clone jutsu in ways that we as the audience have established he can do.
Yeah.
And that I love the part when Kiba punches what he identifies as Naruto,
And it's Akamaru.
but then he realizes that it's Akamaru and punches the other guy, and that was actually Akamaru, and it was Naruto disguised. Oh my god, I love that.
It was kind of like the giant shuriken from the Zabuza fight.
You'll notice my
Sasuke.
favorite fights are the ones where you have a clear grasp on what they can do, and they play around with that, and it's almost more like a game of chess.
Now, with that being said, the two worst fights in this entire section were Dosu and Choji.
Yeah.
Rolling Chip Boy.
He had a fight.
Wait, yeah? He had a fight?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
did.
he did.
Oh wow!
But
I completely forgot about that.
He like got himself into a ball and went rolling at Dosu, and then Dosu just blasted him into a wall and knocked him the fuck out.
Huh.
Because he's not very much in control. So that one, and then the other worst fight of this entire bunch was Tenten and Tamari. The Sand Girl and the Weapons Mistress. Partially because, like, Tamari's really strong and she uses, like, really cool jutsu and shit. But like, Tenten was just kind of like, I'm just gonna throw weapons at you for 5 minutes, and then when I run out of weapons, I'm gonna die. Well, not die. She didn't die. But
Yeah.
It was honestly, that is the worst fight in this whole chunk of episodes for me, because all she does is she's just like, look at this amazing scroll that just throws like 40 weapons at this woman with a giant fan, and she just like foof, blows them all
I
away.
legitimately do not remember those fights.
No, I don't honestly either. The only fights I legitimately remember because they were at least like memorable was honestly Sasuke's fight. I can't remember who his opponent was, but I was more so focused on like what Sasuke was doing.
No, I believe that
anyways.
happened.
I was just checking. I got the right order. Yeah, it's the same episode as Shikamaru's shadow clone fight with the girl, where he like backs her into the wall. See, I like that because that's the way Shikamaru fights. He's strategic and smart.
Yeah.
He's very lazy and he doesn't like to fight hard, so he
Yeah.
fights smart.
Yeah, exactly.
But I know what you mean against Aoba.
Yeah.
He's unimportant, but
Yeah,
it's a
he's
good
un-
mechanism
he's-
to show off Sasuke's ability.
Yeah,
I can
Sasuke's
believe you that
ability.
these fights happened. Don't get me wrong here. That's probably around the point where I asked my brother whether or not when Naruto got good.
Yeah. And then I definitely liked Ino and Sakura's fight. I definitely liked that because that was a good amount of character development, which is sad because that's basically all the character development that they really get.
Actually, ironically, Ino gets far more character development going forward.
That's a fucking oof right there.
Look, I think Ino gets literally the best female character development in the entire series because, and we're not going to get this far, so I don't mind spoiling it at any point, but Ino's life goal is to take over torture and interrogation from Ibiki in the end. Like, that is her goal in life by the end of the series. Like, she takes over torture and interrogation. Because she is a bitch, and I love her for it.
Now that we're kind of getting to the end of the preliminaries, I just want to... I need to do it at one point. I can't go this positive for this long. Oh my god, the spider guy fight. That was...
What?
The spider versus was it the sound guy?
Oh, you mean Bug Guy versus
Bug
the
guy
sound-
versus sound guy.
Oh, Shino and Zaku.
Like, they go through this entire flashback, and I'm like, wow, you went through this flashback for a character that was just about to lose the fight really quickly and pretty, like, just to show off the bug guy's powers. Why didn't you give us a flashback for the bug guy instead?
So, I can tell you why we got a flashback for Zaku there, right? And it's because you know how Orochimaru is the main villain of this arc?
Yeah.
It's because Zaku's flashback it includes what Orochimaru does to him for him to have the powers that he has, like those pipes in his arm and stuff. And it's supposed to show you, I get that you didn't get it because we haven't finished the arc, but it's supposed to show you the absolute brutality and carelessness that Orochimaru treats his people with. Like, he literally just views them as weapons who, once they have been defeated, are completely expendable.
See, and it might just be because the characters sort of blended together for me, but I didn't quite get that aspect of it. So when it comes on, it's a flashback for a character who we really don't know much about.
Yeah.
And for who isn't the main central point of this fight. The point of the fight was largely to show off this. By the end, it's to show off Bug Guy's ability.
Shino.
And then I talked to Sekhie about it later and find out this guy plays pretty much no role going forward in the series. We almost never see him again.
Well, no, because he's fucking... His pipes have been destroyed.
Yeah.
He's useless to Orochimaru. That's the point, right? Because he's built up, right? Like, he's so cocky because he's like Orochimaru himself, like our leader himself, implanted these pipes in my arm. It was extremely painful and hard, but like now I can be of great use to him. But he can't be. That's the point. Shino beats him, right? And Shino's not even main cab, but Shino beats him, and so he's now useless to Orochimaru, and Orochimaru doesn't care anymore, and it's because he's expendable.
Mm-hmm. And I get that aspect of it. But the flashback itself just felt so pointless.
It has a point, but its point is maybe not immediately obvious.
I think it... Yeah, I think obviously I can say that it makes a good point and means a lot to me, obviously, because I've seen the series so many times and I know what the point it's making is supposed to be empirically. But at the same time, I remember when I was watching it, the point of it is kind of to make you feel bad for Zaku, and I did when I first watched his fight, right? I genuinely felt bad for him because nobody cared. His life is ruined. He ruined his arms doing that, and nobody cared because he's expendable. He has no use if he's not the perfect weapon, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But it's showing the brutality inherent in certain parts of this series, which becomes more and more increased going forward.
Right.
I get that, but we also touched upon that a lot more, and in my opinion, a lot better with Haku's character in the Zabuza arc.
Yeah, but Haku's character, this is supposed to be an example of that directly linked to Orochimaru and the Sound Village, whereas Haku's was just a commentary on the world itself and the Mist Village.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that it's not. The Orochimaru, that Haku's a direct parallel, but I just think it feels like we're retreading the same ground here as far as that point goes.
See, I think that we are retreading the same ground, but it's to emphasize the kind of child soldier aspect of this show, because obviously in the Konoha 12, right? we don't really see them as child soldiers. I mean, they're kind of like friends having fun. There's not a lot of high stakes going on, especially between one another. But then you meet characters like Gaara, who it's kill or be killed, or characters like Haku and Zaku, who are like, they have to be the perfect weapon for their master, whoever they choose to follow, and they have to kill on his orders and do what they tell him, because that's the only way that they can survive. Honestly, part of the thing is Konoha's a really large and strong village, and these 12 have kind of had like a really spoiled, safe upbringing compared to most people in the world, because Konoha is so strong in such a large village. And so it doesn't, you look at them and you don't really get the brutality of the world and the fact that these are child soldiers that are being trained to kill and murder and die for these causes, because they don't have to. They have a village that's strong enough to protect them. But then you see these other characters like the Saiyan 3 or like Zaku's team, where they don't have that protection inherent.
See,
like they've had to be exposed to the brutalities of the world.
And that's a good analysis, but also just as a viewing experience, this is just the kind of thing that just doesn't work for me.
Like, or it's just flying over your head.
I could say between the two of us, nothing flies over my head. I have reflexes.
Reflexes like a panther.
Like a cat.
Throw something at your head and you miss. You got the Matt Murdock reflexes, you trying to say.
I got the Drax reflexes.
I am standing so still that you cannot see me. Crunch.
They can't see this.
I know, you guys can't see it, but okay, I'm sorry.
I watched Guardians of the Galaxy recently, if you couldn't tell.
I'm sorry, I've been going on a really long time, because I think that the Chuunin exams is a really meaningful arc, and I think it sets up a lot of, like, the difference between Konoha and the rest of this world, and the difference between the perspective that we've been introduced to through these relatively spoiled children, as opposed to these characters that we're now meeting who don't have that same protection and security in their lives.
See,
And it's all a part of like going up towards like a major climax, and I love it.
That, but I think that's just in large part because I've never seen the other villages to have that point of comparison. If we had seen the other villages up to this point, we've seen the situation they're in a little bit more detail than any of the flashbacks have actually given us, then maybe I could have extrapolated that from what we watched, but we really don't.
Yeah, it would have helped. Also, I will say this about my experience. The Sasuke fight right there absolutely felt pointless to me, but I think that at that point I was just too tired of fights.
That was the preliminaries. It's a fight. It's a tournament arc.
Yeah, I mean, Sasuke was going to win. He had to. Yeah. Sakura didn't have to, but Sasuke and Naruto did have to.
Yeah.
They're pretty much the only characters who you're guaranteed had to win their fights.
Right.
Being fair, they didn't spend that much time on the Sasuke fight. It was like half an episode at most.
Well, yeah, because he was up against literally a no-name.
Yeah.
Who does not matter. Like, I can't even remember the guy's name, and that should tell you something, because I know a lot about obscure Naruto characters.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, Waifu Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Waifu Wars. Waifu Wars. Waifu Wars. NikNak.
I don't remember his name, but the pug.
Pakun.
Mine for this one, I believe, was... It's either a toss-up between Gaara or Orochimaru. I'm gonna go with the Orochimaru on this one, though.
Pug. The
Pakun.
dog.
Pakun.
Oh, man. Fuck. See, because we get to meet, like, most of my favorite characters during this arc. Fuck. Shikamaru.
Okay.
I mean, Shikamaru is one of my favorite characters in this entire series ever, so...
So I think at this point, we should probably move on to our free thoughts and the preview for next time. So remember to try hard, everyone, and like, comment, subscribe.